He who can no longer pause to wonder and stand wrapped in awe is as good as dead. His eyes are closed. These are the words of Albert Einstein, a man who knew that awe is a necessity of the human condition. It is perhaps in today's world the best tool that we have to help us break the shackles of neo-modern despair and repair the divisiveness that we feel in the world all around us. For it is when we are enveloped in awe that our soul is refreshed, and we remember the true power of what it means to be human, the beauty, the sadness, the joy, the pain. Rod Serling knew those who remain most human are those who remain most open to being moved. That is my goal for this show, to move both you and me a little bit closer to humanity, one episode at a time. Well, I hope that was a proper introduction to the show. I'm going to open each episode with a Serling-esque monologue that connects with our corresponding Twilight Zone episode. Now, my goal moving forward is to shoot for keeping the monologues under 1 minute, which is quite the task sometimes. I mean, I'm a college instructor after all. We can barely order pancakes in under 250 words. But I love a good challenge. And if I can compose even just one quality sentence in any of my monologues, I'll be a happy camper. Now, I don't want to talk too much in this pilot episode, but I would like to introduce myself and give you a sense of how I'm envisioning our show, and how it's going to be a little different than many of the other Twilight Zone shows or podcasts that you might have listened to. But before I dive into the details, I would like to give a shout out to Tom Elliott of the Twilight Zone podcast. I've been an admirer of his and his show for quite some time. No one draws you into the culture of the Twilight Zone quite like Tom. So, shout out to Tom Elliott, who is now drawing closer to the end of his run through the Twilight Zone. If Tom does decide to write his book, I'll be one of the first ones to purchase it and give it a good read. Who am I? My name is Joe Meyer. I'm a lecturer at the University at Albany in upstate New York, in the program in Writing and Critical Inquiry. I'm fortunate in that I love my institution, my colleagues, and my students. Truth be told, I love teaching. I always have. My areas of interest are early American literature, people like Herman Melville, Nathaniel Hawthorne, Emily Dickinson, and, yes, just like Rod Serling, Edgar Allan Poe. But I also lend my focus to heroic narratives, particularly epic poetry, and philosophy in a broad sense. Like most young adults, I spent a good amount of my 20s and 30s reading great works of literature and philosophy. You know, like we all did. Right? I've taught college courses in literature, philosophy, and writing since 2006, and I'm married to the greatest woman in the world. Over the course of my career, I've brought the Twilight Zone into the classroom so many times I've honestly lost count, and one of the reasons I do so is because most of my students have either never heard of it, or have only heard pop cultural references to it. So when I show them an episode like The Shelter, which I actually just did, about 2 weeks ago, and they loved it, or I show them a game of pool, they're left in a kind of state of awe, which is the perfect state to engage them in philosophical conversations. And there's also some research to back this up. If you click around YouTube long enough, you're likely to have crossed paths with a man named Jonathan Haidt. In the present, Haidt tends to concern himself with social media and the effects that it has on young adults, especially young women. But prior to that, Haidt, along with Dasher Keltner, published a landmark study in 2003 regarding the effects of awe. Later, a man named Craig Anderson, building off Keltner and Haidt, showed that experiencing a state of awe can actually help us feel more connected to the world, to humanity, and to ourselves. Awe has become an important component of my teaching. I try to create moments of it throughout my courses, and here's why. I can't tell you how many times over the last 3 to 5 years I've had young people, men and women, come into my office looking for anyone who will simply take the time to listen to them, because they just feel so disconnected from the world and lost. Yes, the data shows that anxiety and depression are up in young adults, but this feeling of disconnect is not only happening in that community. It has spread to people 65 and older as well, and even children as young as 10 to 12 years old. Now, I won't go into major details here for why I think this is occurring. That's a very long conversation, perhaps for another time. The more important point I want to make is that experiencing awe can actually help push back against the disconnect and the division. And that's where the Twilight Zone comes in. And that's also where I hope this show comes in. It's my goal for this show to provide a kind of medicine for the soul, to help you and, yes, me, stay connected to what is truly important, meaningful engagement with humanity. And so as I talk to you on each episode, I'm also talking to myself. Well, for the first few dozen episodes, I probably will only be talking to myself. But if in the future you somehow stumble across this moment in the show, go ahead and send me an email at keyofimaginationShow@gmail.com and let me know you're out there. Now, for many of us who truly love The Twilight Zone, I think one of the primary reasons we return to it again and again is because we still experience this state of awe when we watch it, a kind of repairing of the bonds that connect us to humanity. In short, we feel better about ourselves and the world around us. This is how my show will differ from other Twilight Zone podcasts out there. I want to discuss the awe. I want to engage us in meaningful conversation about the human condition, to tap into the brilliance of Rod Serling. Now, how am I going to attempt to do this? Well, at the end of each episode of our show, starting with this very one, I'll be proposing 3 questions for us to think about as we watch the next episode on our list. In this case, it will be the first episode that aired. Where is everybody? 2 of these questions will always be different and largely connected to some aspect of the human condition. The last question will always be the same. What were your moments of awe in this episode? What moved you to feel something or think more deeply about your place in the world? I'll be bringing in great works of literature, philosophy, and scientific research, all with the purpose of enhancing our discussion of the episode. And although I'll be doing most of the talking, I encourage people to use active listening. What this means is, let your mind wander a bit. If I say something that makes you think, run with it. It's okay if you don't get every word. My students are often shocked when I say this to them. But the purpose is to prompt thinking. It's not for you to memorize and get everything all at once. A second goal of mine, although still a primary one, and I know it will take time, is to build a community here. I want people to feel like this is their show as well. I invite emails, answers to my questions, thoughts about the episode, even just your ratings for the episode. And yes, we'll still have a rating system, mostly because I love making guesses about where I think people stand on an episode and then finding out that I'm completely wrong. I have no problem admitting when I'm wrong, another thing that my students know very well from me. The last thing that I'll say here is that I'm going to keep the show as family-friendly as possible. There will be times when we'll have to discuss some serious topics. If I think that I'm going to go to a place that is better suited for adults, I'll do my best to say so beforehand. But I encourage people to watch The Twilight Zone with their kids and challenge them with my questions. Never be afraid of pushing young people with difficult questions. Let them try. What's the worst that happens? They say something that doesn't make sense? Okay. Give them a PhD and put them in front of a group of college students and they'll fit right in most days. So those are my goals, and that's me. I hope you consider going on this journey with us. I'm about to give our first set of questions. I'll do my best to not spoil anything for new viewers. However, my questions will often connect with a theme or themes from the episode. If you're really worried about spoilers, I would say you can stop here and go check out the actual Twilight Zone episode and then maybe come back for the ending of our show. You can also go to thekeyofImagination.com where I'll have the questions posted there for the episodes as well. So, here we go. Here are our questions for Where Is Everybody? Question 1. If Mike Ferris had another human being with him, would it make his situation really any better? Question 2. How does consciousness, his awareness of himself, add to Ferris's terror? And question 3. What are your moments of awe? What moved you or made you think more deeply about your place in humanity? Okay, so head over to thekeyofimagination.com to continue the conversation. You can give the episodes a ranking, get access to previous shows, when we actually have previous episodes to access. And you can also send me your thoughts in terms of your moments of awe for this Twilight Zone episode, or any of our previous ones as well. You can send them to me as either just a regular email, or you can send an audio clip or a video clip. Keep it roughly around 5 minutes in length. And again, keep in mind we're trying to be a family-friendly show here, okay? But you can send those directly to keyofimaginationShow@gmail.com. Now, as I previously mentioned, we're trying to build a community of people here who love the Twilight Zone. So I appreciate your taking the time to like, comment, share, and rate the show. All of the usual algorithmic gymnastics. But even if you hated this, I would still like to thank you and everyone for taking some time to be with me today. Remember, all doors are open to those who possess the key of imagination.